Hello, sensitive one, and welcome back to Surviving to Thriving for Highly Sensitives. And I am here to help you just to move past any kind of struggle that you're experiencing, anything that's keeping you just feeling like you're barely surviving, to really embracing the traits, gathering all of those tools that help you to manage everything in a world that's not designed for being highly sensing, and to really be able to thrive. So it's good to have you as always. And this month, the topic is on mindset and being able to shift that. And so today specifically, I want to talk about our programming and how those things are related. So we do have a system that is basically kind of an autopilot system, right? We learn something, it becomes, habit, or we just, know how to do things. And then we don't have to think about it anymore. It's just automatic. So this would be like driving or putting on our clothes, eating. We don't have to tell ourselves, remind ourselves, oh, okay, if I'm going to have to pick up the spoon, stick it in, don't tip it, turn it a certain way, release at a certain time. That would be exhausting if we had to remind ourselves everything that we do all day long. So we have that automatic system that just kicks in once we learn that, or once we have that input in our system, then we don't have to think about it anymore. And that works really great for those things like driving. And you've probably had this experience where you get to somewhere and you realize you really weren't paying attention to what you were doing, and somehow you got there. So it is pretty handy that we can do these things. We don't have to think about putting our socks on first and then our shoes. All of that works really great. So when it gets to be an issue is when all of those things that we're not aware of that affect us in a way that's not optimal, that's all automatic as well. And that includes our thoughts and the way we respond or react to other people, to events, the things that just happen by habit or by programming, these things that are they just are as they are because they always have been that way. And that's a lot of what we learned both growing up and as we go. I mean, every time we have an experience, if it's new, we establish some kind of baseline for that. But a lot of that is still based on our original programming and our previous thoughts about similar events or experiences. So it's really, really important to be aware of how that affects us so that we can change it. So I've talked about intention and how important that is. And we have to have awareness of what we want to intend. And we have to have awareness of what we're doing to start with if we want to make a change. And that can be the trickiest part because, again, everything is on autopilot. And so we come to a certain situation and we have a certain response and things go in that same way that they usually do. And we say, what is going on? I know that I need to do this differently. And yet the same thing happens. It's because of that programming. It's that unconscious or subconscious experience and understanding that leads us to our existing patterns. So being able to shift that requires that awareness of what it is. And if we're not aware, we just default to that system that says, oh yeah, no, I got it. I know how to handle the situation. I know what to say to this person when they say this to me, because that's what I've always done. Or we believe something, we give a certain kind of meaning. Now HSPs, right? We give a lot of meaning to pretty much everything, which is really great in some aspects. And then sometimes if we have something that is not really helping us, then it's not so great, but we have that, meaning. And sometimes when we have so much meaning that we give to something, we kind of use that to validate our experience and our chosen response or behavior. So being aware of how that's happening allows us to then shift that. So if we think about things like, just our thoughts are reflections of our conditioning. So we learn as we're, growing up, as we're having different experiences, this means this, so I'm going to have this thought about it. And therefore I feel this way about it, whereas somebody else might feel differently. And this can seem like, well, no, that's not true. If I have this situation, of course I feel this way. But if we think about some kind of a situation where two different people are having the exact same event or are participating in or watching, witnessing the exact same event, they can have completely different experiences. And that's not that the experience is different, because it's exactly the same. It's because of what we tell ourselves. And so in that situation, say two people are standing, next to each other, and someone comes up and starts, just berating, and this just onslaught of horrible things that this person is saying. One person might be saying, wow, I wonder what's going on with this person today. They must be having a really rough day. Hope everything's okay, or okay. And then just let that go and not carry it forward, because it doesn't mean anything other than, like, wow, that was an interesting experience. And that's that. While the other person might immediately say, I can't believe they would say such a thing to anyone, let alone me. I mean, what is it about me that makes that person say that? And how dare they? And just on and on and on, and this is not fair, and life is not fair, and et cetera, et cetera. And that might seem like over the top, but it certainly happens. And so that person is going to be left with, oh, I don't like that type of person, or, this situation is just not good for me. I'm not going to come here anymore, or, whatever that resulting decision is, that's based on the meaning that was given in that situation and the resulting feelings, but it's not the event itself. So that first person was able to just let that go and not worry about it, because they didn't take it personally. They didn't take it as, something long-standing going forward. It means the next time in a similar situation, the same thing's going to happen. And the other person is seeing things that way. And then it makes it really hard to let go of those things. And when we have that mindset, but we're not aware of what that is or where it comes from, then it's really hard to shift that. And then the next time something like that happens, the same kind of response is going to be there, and it's going to continue to be challenging. Whereas that first person, if they see the same thing again, they're probably going to be like, oh, maybe they'd say, oh, that reminds me of this other day when someone was doing something similarly, but they don't give that meaning to it, to hold on to it and assume that every time going forward, it's going to be that way. So we do need to be aware, how that conditioning leads to where we are at currently. So if we look at our actual programming, as in childhood, and actually this even starts in the womb, we learn things from our parents, we learn things from our surroundings, and all of the experiences, especially as we get into maybe preschool or babysitting situations, or then we get to kindergarten and actually start into the school system. We have all these things that we learn. And think about it, when you were a little kid, what did you learn? Adults know best. You're supposed to listen to them no matter what. And this is the way to do things. And as an adult, I'm sure, and especially if you're a parent, do what I say, not what I do sometimes, because you kind of have an idea of things, but then you do things differently anyway. And you don't want your kids to do those, right? Or you don't want other people to do things that way, because you just know it's not quite right. But kids don't know the difference between that. They can't differentiate between, well, that seems like a good idea, but I'm not sure I want to follow that. They're told, adults know, parents know, you just do what they do and what they say. And they, you model things for children. So children, young children see things, and they make that part of their programming, like, oh, this is how you do this, and this is what you should do in this situation, etc. So you have all of this input coming in from your family, from society, as you interact, as a small child, of course. And in these days, really, to be honest, there's so much with, TV and social media and just the events that are happening outside, that all of that's even more, input than it used to be. So all of this stuff is coming in as a young child, and that becomes your way of understanding life, of the world. You develop that idea, life is safe or life is dangerous. Or, I mean, those are very broad, but those types of things are something to be aware of. If you grew up learning, you had to be, very careful in order to be, you have to do all these things to be safe, and you couldn't say what you were really thinking because these bad things would happen, all of these things, then you're going to go forward very hesitant and not speaking your truth and not saying the things that you want to, for fear of, some kind of repercussion, because you learned life isn't safe that way, or to do these things. So that's just one example, but all of the things that we learn as we're growing up, that becomes our programming that tells us how to operate. And then every time something comes up that's similar, not consciously, but automatically, our mind says, oh yeah, so this is this kind of situation, which happened, when I was 4, this is what I learned about it. So therefore, that's what I do now. And this is the way to handle it. And that's not always helpful, and it's not always accurate or the best thing, but it's what we learned. So first of all, I want you to be able to just take a deep breath and say, okay, a lot of this that I experience is not my fault. Now, we always need to take responsibility for our own behavior and for the way we treat people and the way we speak. I'm not saying that at all, but the programming piece is not our fault. So we learn things even when you're in the womb, the things that your mother is going to say, or that both of your parents are going to say in the room, that energy gets picked up, and the stress and the, different things like that are picked up even before you're born. And then all of that time, until you're about 7 is when you're really, really malleable and you really develop that programming. So give yourself a little bit of leeway and say, okay, yeah, a lot of this came, outside of my control. Not my fault that was there. But now as an adult, I can increase my awareness, understand all of this, and then make choices, make changes, shift that mindset so it's not so impactful anymore. So that's the key, is not that you don't take responsibility for your own actions and say, oh, too bad, that's what I learned growing up, so I don't need to change anything. Not my fault. So it's not that at all, but it is, a way of saying, okay, I don't have to take responsibility for where this stuff came from, but now I can do something about it and shift the meaning that I give things and what I tell myself about those things. And that will affect my emotions about it, because if that meaning is different, then my experience is different. So that's the whole key that I'm, talking about today. So again, when we would look at those previous experiences, we can understand, oh, okay, so when a person speaks to me in this tone, it kicks in something from, way, way back, and I become extremely defensive. I'd stop listening. I spew something that I don't really mean to say, whatever it is, but we can look at it and go, okay, yep, this came from someplace. Maybe you can even identify it directly. Sometimes it takes, using some tools to be able to find out where that actually came from. But a lot of times we can look back and go, well, yeah, this sounds just like my mom. I just responded like my mom. Or if these things will come up and if we're aware of it, say, okay, this isn't working. It keeps coming up. What is this about? What am I telling myself about this? And then you can look back and go, well, why am I telling myself this? And maybe identify, where that came from. It's not mandatory that we know where or what it was, but just that we know this is coming from, somewhere deep that's really not even about me, or it's not even mine, or I learned it from somewhere, but now I can choose to make that different, so that we don't have to come to the same experience every time saying, oh, well, this is the way it's always been, so it's the way it's always going to be. We can say, I don't like the way this is. I'm going to shift it now by changing my thought patterns, changing my belief structure. So one of the things that's really good to be aware of is these thoughts, these beliefs that are coming in around there that you might be aware of if you start to pay attention to some of these things that I've been talking about. And things like, well, my mom always told me I was never going to be successful, so I know I'm not. Or this kind of situation is always dangerous, so I'm going to avoid it at all costs. I'm never gonna show up to one of these things. So those kinds of like always, never, across the board kind of things are kind of those red flags to let us know, okay, there's an old belief in there, which may not even be yours, that you can address and shift, because it doesn't have to be true anymore. It will be true if we're on autopilot, but we can shift that so that it's not autopilot anymore. We can override the program that says, this happens, do this, or this happens, this is what it means. We can now override that with, this happens, I can choose to believe this or this or this, but this is the one that I want. And therefore, if I believe that, wow, my feelings are really different about that. And then I can choose something completely different from a different place. So that's kind of the gist for today that I hope you'll really pick up on, is that idea that we really do have that choice. We can say, oh, it's not really my fault where this came from, but now I can be aware of it, and now I can make that change. So being aware of those ideas, those thoughts that are always there is really important. So if we're conscious about a belief that we have, then we can do something about it. If it's just unconscious, it's just on autopilot, it's taken as fact. So even if we become aware and we're conscious, oh, I've got this thing I've been telling myself all this time, but that's not true. I'm just going to let that go. Sometimes, it's great when that happens. Sometimes we can just be aware of it and go, oh, okay, I'm not going to think that anymore. I'm going to think this instead. But if we're not paying attention to that and maintaining that awareness and choosing to shift it, to actually say, okay, I get it. That was an old thought. I don't want to believe that anymore. It's not true. That's what my head up here says. But then I still have these automatic responses. So I'm going to work on every time that happens. I'm going to stop myself, recognize what I'm doing, and then make a change. And that can help to create that shift after a while. And then there are other things like EFT tapping, which is something that I do with clients that can be really, really effective for shifting that old pattern, getting rid of it as the default, the known response, and creating a new one that says, oh, I've always done this, but I don't have to. And this is what it actually means. So this is what I'll do now. And that helps to really set that in nicely. And, a lot of other techniques as well. And I'll be talking later in other episodes about specific tools and things that we can actually do to help shift that mindset. But the EFT is a really, really strong, effective tool for that. So feel free to reach out if you want to learn more about EFT. I do offer that just, on its own without coaching or with coaching. But it's a very powerful way to look at that programming. Even if we don't know where it came from, a lot of times that helps for it to surface and go, oh, well, no wonder I've been thinking that or doing that all this time because it's related to this. Okay, that makes sense. And then we let it go, and then we program something in that makes more sense, that allows us to have those positive responses that we want and get rid of those default choices. All right, well, as I said, I'll be talking about some other techniques going forward, but for today, what I wanted to do is just honor the fact that in that 0 to 7 year period, when we had all of that stuff coming in, just, constant influx of information, we need to, give credence to what that child was doing that whole time. They're learning, and being told what to do and trying to do the right thing and following. So I wanted to do just a quick little exercise to just, to honor our inner child, to acknowledge all the things that we did during that time. So even if there's something in there that's, that we're following, and it's really not if, like what those things are that we are following that are old, that are not helping us and serving us anymore, we can at least honor that, as that child, we were amazing and perfect and wonderful, even though we had all the stuff that was being, thrown at us. And so it's nice to just, acknowledge and honor that we did the best we could because we were children. So if you want, we can do this little visualization, just, get in a comfortable position, take some couple deep breaths. And then if you're comfortable, close down your eyes. If you'd rather just kind of stare off and soften your gaze. And then just see if you can focus for a moment on your heart area. Just be aware of your chest expanding as you breathe, your belly's expanding as well. Be aware of how your body feels as that air is coming into your system and as you exhale. And then just focus on that heart area. You might put your hand there if you want. And just be aware of the air coming in, kind of focus it in that heart area. And now just visualize yourself at an age 0 to 7, pick whatever age you choose. And imagine you have like a little mini me that is going to be sitting in your heart center. So just bring that little you into your heart space and allow it to sit there in your heart. And look at that child. See if you notice anything about what that child is feeling at this moment. And now each time that you inhale and you bring air into your body, into your system, imagine that it's filled with love and light and support. And as that air comes in, it first goes immediately to that little you, your inner child, and see your little self taking in that love and support. And that's filling your whole adult body as well. But just notice how, as that breath comes in with that loving, supportive energy, how that little you is bringing that in to themselves and experiencing that feeling of love and compassion, support. And as you bring in that inhale, bringing that toward your inner self, allow that to just expand the heart center of your little self. And then as you exhale, send yourself these messages like, you are amazing. You did the best you could. Look what you were able to do. With so much going on, you did such a great job. Everything is okay. Any kind of positive statements like that you might have for your inner self, just send those with each exhale to your little self. And visually, see if you can recognize how your inner self is responding to all of that. Encourage him or her to accept it all, to embrace it, and allow it to feel so much better. And a couple more deep breaths, bringing all of that loving, supportive energy in. And then all of those happy comments. You're amazing. You did such a great job. I love you. And then go ahead and say, see you later, or goodbye, or whatever you'd like to, to see again soon to your little self. And then pay attention to your own body now, your adult body, wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, pay attention to the room. And just make sure that you're back here. And of course, you can do that anytime you feel like, just connecting with your inner child, reminding yourself that you did the best that you could do. You had all this information coming in. You did the best with what there was and what you could do. So give yourself that honoring, that compassion. And we will continue this theme next week. And as always, just feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and you might want to check out my online course. There's a link for that on my show page, which helps you go all the way through from calming your nervous system to energy and emotions and honoring yourself and creating healthy relationships and being able to really embrace who you are as a highly sensing person. So until next time, have a fabulous week, and we will see you again.